What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and today I am bringing you a deck profile that I have wanted to bring you guys for quite some time, but unfortunately couldn't get my hands on some of the cards until they were just reprinted in the new Legendary Collection Duelist whatever series, Season 3 something or other, and that is going to be Branded Predaplant, so let's go ahead and show you guys the build. Alright, so this is something that I have been working on for about a month and a half, maybe about 2 months right now, and I think that this is the best variant of Branded, because you don't just lose to getting your Branded Fusion ashed, because you have other follow-up plays with the Predaplant engine, so let's show you guys what we got. So we're starting off with 2 Fallen of Albaz. This is just pretty standard. You don't want to play 1 because it's too little, you don't want to play 3 because it's too much. 2 is the perfect ratio for anything that is using a other engine rather than just pure Branded Despia, so 2 of those. Then we have 2 copies of Despian Tragedy. This is a very minimal Despia engine because it really just isn't that great for this variant, but you do still need it for your branded cards. So with the 2 Tragedy, 2 of the Aluber, and then 1 of the Ad Libitum. So that's going to be it for the Despia cards. Honestly, I've been considering cutting the Aluber down to 1, just because your Predaplant normal summons are a lot stronger than your Aluber. Usually you just want to use the Aluber off of the branded opening, but I do feel like 2 is necessary. There are some games where you just need more Despia names, so Aluber is the better one to play. Onto the Predaplant cards, we have 1 copy of Predaplant Bufalicula. This is just a polymerization every single turn for Dark Monsters, because it is a Pendulum card, and usually your opponent's not going to hit it, plus there's not really many things that can hit it in the main board. Maybe if your opponent's playing something like Ghost Ogre, they'll use it, but honestly just a very good card. Polymerization every turn doesn't sound bad. We are playing 2 copies of Biblisp. 3 is just a little too bricky for my likes. I know that a lot of the Predaplant versions are playing 3, but you just end up seeing way too many names and not enough other cards to do what you actually need to, so I did cut those down to 2. And that is going to be the same with the Clamido Sundew. Clamido Sundew, I believe most people run it 2 anyway, but it's just one of those things where you mostly want to search it off of things like your Predapractice or your other cards. You really don't want to open it. So having 2 of it just kind of lets you abuse it at least more than once. Of course, we have our 1 copy of Darlingtonia Cobra. This is what searches any fusion spell card, so that's our branded fusion, our instant fusion, our super poly, our regular poly, and whatnot. So really good card, and of course we're pairing that with the Ophirus Scorpio. This is one of, if not the best normal summons in the game, because it will let you summon that Darlington Cobra from the deck, and then you just kind of get the ball rolling with whatever fusion spell you end up searching. Then we have 1 copy of Stay Sailor Romarin. This is a card that I was really on the fence about. I originally cut it because I just didn't really see the use in it, but it has come up once or twice where you want to send it over the other light target that you have using Branded Fusion. So what you can do is you could Branded Fusion, send this as your light target for the Albion, and then this will let you, I believe it sends, yeah, it'll send your Biblisp, and then Biblisp will get its effect. So it just kind of gets the ball rolling. Usually doesn't come up, honestly, but it comes up enough to warrant playing it. But the better light target to send is going to be the copy of Fairy Tale Snow. This is what you're usually sending, and I will show you guys a combo at the end that sets this up, and it's just kind of insane. Then we have our 3 copies of Edge of Chain. We are still playing the Fright for Patchwork engine just because being able to search polymerization is insane. With such a low Despia count, we aren't playing that many copies of Branded in Red, so when you want to abuse Guardian Chimera, it's usually going to be on your own turn, meaning that you need the polymerization not only to make it easier, but also make it so that it can't be targeted. Onto the spell cards, we are only playing 1 copy of Branded in Red. Like I said, it is a very small Despia engine, so this card more often than not is not going to be live, at least not until later turns. So it's one to be there if you need it, but you don't want to open it. Then we have our 1 Call by the Grave, obviously, who likes getting hand trapped, and our 1 Foolish Burial. This is just kind of essentially turns into any card. You can Foolish your Tragedy and get an Aluber, you can Foolish your Biblisp and get any of your Predaplants, so just a really good card to have. Then we have the 1 Instant Fusion. This card is incredible because this card alone can just get the ball rolling into your Predaplant stuff, and I'll show you guys that in the extra deck. But even if you don't need it to get the ball rolling, then you can use it for something like a Millenniumize or Strict to turn off hand traps for the turn, and honestly that's just incredible utility. Then we have only 2 copies of Fright for Patchwork. It is a card that I don't want to see more than once, because you want to use it once to grab your Edge of Chain, then you want to use the Edge of Chain to grab the other one, and usually you just run out of chains way too quickly, so the 3rd Patchwork more often than not ends up being dead, so decided to cut that. Then we have our 2 copies of Polymerization still, because we still need the polys to search off of the Patchwork, and Poly is just a phenomenal card for a fusion-based deck. We are only playing 2 Super Polys, and spoiler alert, that is because we are playing Branded Banishment, which is essentially a Super Poly on its own, but much more searchable for this specific deck, so I just think that you don't need 3 of the Super Poly, 2 is more than enough. We have, obviously, 3 Branded Fusion. This is the bread and butter of the deck. This is the card that you want to stop with Ash Blossom if you are going to stop anything, especially in just regular branded decks. But with the Branded Predaplant, ashing the Branded Fusion will not just end the turn like it will for regular Branded Despia, so that's the biggest reason that I like this variant as much as I do. We have our 3 Branded Opening. Again, this is because we want to be able to summon the Eluber without having to normal it. Then we have 3 Preda Practice. This is the card that was preventing me from making the profile. Getting this card was incredibly hard, and I do not like ordering cards online because I've just had really bad experiences, so trying to find these locally was a pain in the ass, but now that it was reprinted, we've got 3 of them. This card is probably the best card in the deck, and I will show you why in the combo at the end of the video. And finishing things off, we have the 1 Branded Banishment and the 1 Predaplanting. The Banishment, like I said, is kind of like a Super Poly, and then the Predaplanting is essentially a skill drain because it'll give everything a Preda counter, and if you have Dragostapelia on the field, anything with a Preda counter is negated. Not just that, it is also essentially a free win against Sword Soul because it changes all of their monsters to level 1, so they're not going to be able to synchro properly, so I think the card is really insane. Not to mention it is also a Mystic Mine out because when it is in the graveyard, if you fusion summon, you can banish it from the graveyard to destroy a card your opponent controls, so you can just fusion summon and then use it to pop a Mystic Mine, so I think the card's incredible. That's going to be the main deck at 42 cards. Let's show you guys the extra. Alright guys, so the extra deck is actually really tight and it's undergone many changes in the time that I've been playing this deck, but I feel like the one that I have now is the most solid, so let's show you guys what it is. We have the Predaplant Ambulo Melodies, Jesus Christ. This is honestly probably one of the best fusions in the deck, just because it does so much for you. On summon, it will let you search either a Predaplant monster or a Predap spell or trap, so this gets you into just about anything you could possibly need to finish your turn, and not to mention its other effect where you can either tribute a monster on the field with a Predaplant counter, so you could tribute your opponent's monsters, or you can tribute a monster you control to summon a Predaplant from the deck, so it just gets you more and more advantage. It is a level 5, which makes it an instant fusion target if you need it to be, but you're usually just going to hard fusion summon it, but that's what I was saying earlier when I said that instant fusion can just completely get your ball rolling on its own, so really good card. Then we have our Predaplant Chimera Rafflesia. This card is mostly here just to be a generic Predaplant fusion because I ran into a lot of hands where I needed to be able to make literally anything and I couldn't, so this was the obvious answer. Not to mention it actually has a pretty decent effect, multiple effects actually. One is that you can lower an opponent's monster by 1,000 attack, but the effect that I care about the most is that during the next standby phase, after this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add any fusion spells, so this card can just get you more resources that you wouldn't have otherwise, and is a really good card to be playing. Then we have 2 copies of Dragostapelia. A lot of decks are running this at 3, but I don't see the need. You're never really going to need more than 2 in order to win the game. So this card is incredible. It pairs really well with the Predaplanting Trap, like I said, essentially just skill draining your opponent. So not much needs to be said there. We are only playing 1 Lubellion, the Searing Dragon. Lubellion is more of an afterthought for this deck. This deck prioritizes the Albion more than the Lubellion, so I was able to comfortably cut this to 1 and not really miss it, because it's always going to be putting itself back when it resolves its effect anyway, so you will always have it, and if they end up stopping it and it doesn't put itself back, you still have other plays and it can still act as your fusion monster that you need for the Mirror Jade, so I don't think more than 1 is necessary. We have 2 copies of Albion. I really wanted to play this at 3, but there really just wasn't enough room. So I settled on 2, 1 to actually summon and use its effect, 1 to be able to send off of the Mirror Jade and get the Grave effect. So I think that 2 was fine. If I could, I would put a 3rd in. I'm just not really sure what room I would make for it. Then we have our 2 Mirror Jades, the boss monster of the deck. This card is just incredible, not to mention the fact that because you can recur it using something like Ad Libitum, you can use it multiple times in a single turn, and if your opponent ever gets rid of it, it'll wipe their board, so really good card to have. We have our 1 copy of Despian Quiritus. This card is absolutely necessary. There is a really cool combo that maybe I'll show you guys that uses this to completely out a Sword Soul board. So if you don't know that one, stay tuned. I'll probably show you guys at some point, but this card is absolutely incredible. We have our 1 copy of Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. This just kind of puts your opponent on a timer. They are only allowed to activate a set amount of effects before this card will just kill them. Not to mention the fact that if you're going into time, it's an incredible card to have because of those garbage time rules. So you definitely need at least 1. A lot of the branded decks are playing 2, but again, the extra deck is super tight, so not enough space. We have the Millennium Eyes Restrict. This is an incredible instant fusion target. If you don't need the instant fusion to start going off with your Predaplants, you go into this and essentially tell your opponent that they are not allowed to use hand traps, and then at the end of your turn, because it is a fusion, you can turn it into either your Mirror Jade or your Predaplant Dragostapelia when you're no longer afraid of those hand traps, so just an incredible card to have. You definitely need to play it because of the instant fusion. Then we have two Super Poly targets with Mud Dragon of the Swamp and Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. These are just ways to kind of out whatever board that you need to, seeing the Super Poly, so not really much else needs to be said. And the final card is the Guardian Chimera. This is just an incredible card that can clear your opponent's board, draw you some advantage. You can make it on their turn using the Branded in red, you can make it on your turn using Polymerization, and I don't think that there's any reason not to play it. Alright guys, so I want to show you one combo. This is what I consider to be the bread and butter combo. If you want a more dedicated combo tutorial like my must-know combo videos that I do for other decks, I want to do something a little differently. I've never set a like goal before, so if we can get this video to 100 likes, I will bring you guys that dedicated combo video. But for now, let me just show you guys this one. It's going to be a 2-card combo using the Predapractice and the Biblisp. The Biblisp is actually interchangeable with the Clemido Sundew, and you'll see why here in just a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by activating the Predapractice, special summoning out the Biblisp from our hand, and searching a copy of Clemido Sundew. Now this is why it is interchangeable, because if you special the Clemido Sundew, you just search for the Biblisp, because the next step is to just normal summon the Clemido Sundew. Then you'll activate the Clemido Sundew effect, using the Biblisp and itself to fuse into your copy of Ambula Melodies. Here you can then chain the Biblisp and the Ambula Melodies in any order. We'll just go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. The Biblisp will resolve, adding us a copy of Bufalicula, and then the Ambula Melodies will add us our copy of Predaplanting. So we've already recouped the 2 cards that we've used, and we're not even done yet. Now we're going to activate the effect of the Ambula Melodies and Tribute itself to special summon out our Darlingtonia Cobra, which will activate on summon to add any fusion spell card. So here we will add our Branded Fusion, and then now we can activate our Branded Fusion to be able to summon out one of our branded monsters. So we will send the Fallen of Albaz and the Fairy Tale Snow, and this will let us summon out our copy of Albion. Albion will then activate on summon, which we will use its effect to banish our Fallen of Albaz and our Ambula Melodies because it is a fusion monster. So we can get those off of the field and special summon out our copy of Mirror Jade. But we are still not done. Now we can take the Bufalicula and activate it in our Pendulum Scale, and activate its effect using the Darlingtonia Cobra and the Albion because we have a Dark and a Fusion, and this will let us summon out our copy of Dragostapelia. Now we can set our Predaplanting and proceed to our end phase. In the end phase, the effect of the Albion will activate, letting us set a branded spell or trap from our deck, and you could go for the Branded in red, but we don't have any Despias or a Fallen of Albaz in play right now, so we are going to go for the Branded Banishment, and that is going to be our turn. So what we ended on is we have at least one negate with the Dragostapelia, a potential skill drain by putting a counter on everything our opponent controls, and again, if they have the counter, then the Dragostapelia will negate their effects as well. We have a non-target banish with the Mirror Jade, and because the Albion was hard summoned, we are able to activate the Branded Banishment to resummon the Albion and then essentially Super Poly or just regular fuse, so we could still make the Guardian Chimera on our opponent's turn because we have cards in our hand. And then not to mention, we also have the Fairy Tale Snow live engrave for another interruption. So that is 2 cards. We end on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interruptions. We still have 3 cards in our hand, and that is going to be the combo. And there you guys have it. That is going to be my branded Predaplant deck profile, so you guys know the deal. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, and maybe consider supporting me on Patreon, because for just $1, you can support the channel in a way that I would never be able to tell you how much I fully appreciate. And again, we are trying something a little different. If you want a specifically dedicated combo video for this deck, go ahead and make sure we get this up to 100 likes, and if we do, I will bring this to you guys on the next day. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.